All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushai, Bahasham Rachakudash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And we're back with some more headlines. Starting to see some interesting turn of events here in terms of how the Lord is moving these prophecies along here. So starting off, and this touches on it a bit, but actually what I'll do is I'm going to start with this post slash headline here, and then the other article is going to expound on it a little bit more. But as you can see, it says here from Putin, Russia will act fully in interest of Iran and regional nations. Okay. And statements like this, I mean, this is just the beginning, but this is what, when you read in Ezekiel 38, right, it mentions the 38th chapter, it mentions Russia, being a guard onto nations like Persia, which is Iran. And so it shouldn't come as a surprise that, this is Russia's. I mean, they let it be known from the beginning what side they supported, what side they were on, right? And so that's not a coincidence, right? That's not, because it wasn't always the case, right? Russia and Iran weren't always like this. But we know that, according to biblical prophecy, that's how the Lord set it up. Okay, so hearing that is just, once again, just prophecy furthering along. But what's happening here now is, we used to say, right, when this, this thing first started, Iran had, some sort of plan, right? And they mentioned that they were in contact with Russia and, any other allies that they had, China included, about what's going on. But at the time, they didn't need any form of military backing, on a large scale from the allies, right? They sort of were executing that plan that they had. But now you're starting to see that things are shifting, because when you have war, it's fluid, right? One event, one way may look, the forecast may look one way today, then it changes, then it does this, then it does that. So it's like that. But now what you're seeing is, with this blockade that the U.S. has set up, now they don't have to drop bombs on Iran, but they can still put pressure on them, because Iran is not able to now export their oil because of that blockade. And that's going to lead to shut-ins if nothing happens, which is a problem for Iran, because their oil system, at least the way they set it up and designed it, wasn't for storing oil. It was for exporting, right? So they get it out the ground, they load it up and they export it. It wasn't more like setting up storage facilities where you can just store any excess oil. I'm sure they might have some forms of it, but not on a wide scale. So if you're not able to export the oil that you're getting from the ground, eventually you need to start, closing up those sites where they dig up the oil from. And once they close up, it's very difficult, if not impossible, to reopen them back up. So eventually it starts to have an effect on them, and that's the pressure right there. So here, I think it was today, you had the Iranian foreign minister that went to Russia, basically spoke with him, which we'll read a little bit about that in this article. It says here, Rubio insists U.S. will not tolerate deal which makes Iran gatekeeper over Hormuz, as Putin tells Arachi, Tehran fighting for its sovereignty, right? So he's basically agreeing, right, in line with Tehran, like with Iran, I should say, right? The Russians, their perspective isn't that Iran is the troublemaker here, but that they're the ones trying to basically defend themselves. So Putin tells Foreign Minister Arachi that he's been in contact with the new supreme leader and says Iran fighting for sovereignty. After a weekend of stalemate malaise, Iran reportedly offers new proposal for opening ship traffic while postponing the thorny nuclear issue. Rubio says will not tolerate Iran control of Strait. And then, a few more points on here. Apparently, Israel struck Lebanon after they had declared this so-called ceasefire. So let's read a little bit here. The latest via Washington Street Journal on what Iran is proposing centered on immediately lifting the U.S. naval blockade on Iranian ports. Iran has presented regional mediators with a new offer to stop its attacks in the Strait of Hormuz in exchange for a full end to the war and a lifting of the U.S. blockade of Iranian ports. According to officials familiar with the matter, the proposal presented by Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, I think that's how you pronounce his name, during his tour of the region and Pakistan over the weekend, is designed to break the deadlock in the conflict and set talks back in motion. Because as this continues on longer and longer, the state that this blockade or this prevention of the flow of energy put the world in, it still continues. The people said it would see discussions about Iran's nuclear programs shelved. Washington hasn't responded to the proposal, one of the people said. Now, jumping down here, I suppose we can listen to this real quick.
On Saturday, the president canceled the talks in Islamabad, Pakistan, keeping Special Envoys Kushner and Witkoff here in the United States. He said just 10 minutes later, the Iranians made a new offer on paper, and it was better.
If what they mean by opening the straits is, yes, the straits are open as long as you coordinate with Iran, get our permission, or we'll blow you up, and you pay us. That's not opening the straits. Those are international waterways. They cannot normalize, nor can we tolerate them trying to normalize a system in which the Iranians decide who gets to use an international waterway and how much you have to pay them to use it.
Interesting that they would say that, considering they went into Venezuela and then went and kidnapped their president and stole their oil. But on top of all the other things they've done and going into foreign and sovereign countries and doing whatever they want, but now they want to play the Justice League over here. Says here, Putin says he's in contact with Ayatollah in Araghchi, Moscow meeting. President Putin, Foreign Minister Lavrov, and Iranian Foreign Minister Araghchi have been meeting in Moscow after warm greetings and amid competing narratives over the future of the Strait of Hormuz. Because remember, Russia has vested interests in Iran and also in that region. So they're getting drawn in more and more, but it's a process, right? This doesn't happen overnight. So you can see that this war is not something that is just going to start and be over with just like that, right? In fact, it's been going on for a long time. It's just been like a start, stop, but now the stops are less, in terms of duration, they're shorter. All right. And it's starting to seem more like just a constant thing. All right. And so, I mean, think about it. They have this this whole automated draft system going into effect in December. Now, could they move it up? Who knows? All right. But you can see that this is something that isn't like your average stories that just pop up one day and then 2 weeks later it's gone. And what happened to everybody almost forgot about Trump saying this would be over in, 4 to 6 weeks? I think that's what he said. That was back when they started February 28th. We're now in April, about to be in May. You see that? So when they tell you, they give you a certain timeline, it's damage control. That's all it is. It's damage control. But back to this. The Russian leader said something surprising right out of the gate. At a moment, Ayatollah Ayatollah Khamenei has not been seen since the U.S.-Israeli war began. Last week, I received a message, quote unquote, from the supreme leader of Iran. He told Iran's foreign minister. Additionally, Putin pledged the people of Iran are courageously and heroically fighting for their sovereignty. This certainly stands in sharp contrast from the U.S. and Western consensus. And that's because it's supposed to, right? These are opposing sides here. Putin also stressed Russia will do everything that serves the interests of Iran and the region to achieve peace as soon as possible. And this is why in Ezekiel, I believe it's still Ezekiel 38, it mentions that the Lord, matter of fact, let me go there real quick. I'll just open a new tab for it. Because you can see the angle that Russia, at least the Russians, have been taking for a while now, which is still trying to push diplomacy, still trying to be somewhat, if it can be resolved with peace. Now, it's interesting because they're going to play one of the biggest roles in destruction. And yet they're still trying to push peace, because that's like the final straw, right? That's when all other options are exhausted, and then they're going to get to that point. But remember, when you read in Ezekiel, the 38th chapter, it's talking about God being, turned back, right? The Lord putting hooks into their mouth, them having it coming with their army and so on and so forth. And when you get to, let's see. Yeah, in verse 10, right? It mentions explicitly, thus saith the Lord God, it shall also come to pass. So in addition to all this that's going on, that at the same time shall things come into thy mind, and thou shalt think an evil thought. See that? So when you see, right, Putin responding in a way like this, when even though you can see that the U.S. is blatantly against and using whatever means they can to attack Iran, Russia says they're going to be in support of Iran, right? Which means they're not going to sit there and let Iran get obliterated and destroyed. In fact, I'm pretty sure Trump knew that, which is why he didn't blow them back to the Stone Ages, because he knew what would happen, right? He knew that Russia wouldn't sit by and just let that, oh, okay, cool, go ahead and blow them to the Stone Ages, and then, all right, we'll just call it a day now. No. Okay. So when he says this, right, about Russia will do everything that serves the interest of Iran and the region to achieve peace as soon as possible, it still mentions of peace, but there's going to come a point in time when the Lord is going to put an evil thought into their mind. And that point in time is going to be when diplomacy is 100% out the way. Meaning you've exhausted any forms of it that you can. They thought they did previously, but now they're back to the table, right? They're still trying to find a way around it. But in trying to find a way around it, it's only pushing them further and further and further to the one realization, which is there is no way out of this but through war. And once they fully hit that point, which it takes time, and the Lord is orchestrating it all, but once they fully hit that point, you're going to start to see that that's when things are going to start picking up more and more. I mean, on that war front. Okay, because they're going to realize there is no talking to these people. You can't. And that evil thought is going to sink right up into their minds, and they're going to start speaking with their missiles and their different weaponry. Remember, the ground invasion, the ground war is still yet to start. So there's still a few things that need to take place. That's why the Lord said, but the end is not yet. After Tehran on Monday made clear that it sees the future of the Strait of Hormuz as being under Iranian military control. An earlier headline which pushed crude prices up, and within hours later on this as well. So he said that, but right up above, right, Rubio just said, no, the U.S. ain't trying to hear that. They don't want that. So that's like a deadlock, right? You can't get around that. And Iran knows that there's only so much they can give up to try and come to an agreement without completely just making themselves subservient, right? Giving up any form of what perceived leverage they would have. So there's a lot going on that front. But like I said, you're seeing now the more visible, because before Russia obviously was still involved, but it was more behind the scenes. But now you're seeing it on a more visible level where Iran is saying, look, the situation is escalating. It's not looking too good. But before we hit that point, just tapping you on the shoulder, letting you know, look, start looking over here, see what's going on. And that's all the Spirit of the Lord working anyway. So next, this I found kind of interesting as well. Nothing too crazy, but the narrative, right, being pushed with this. Remember, whenever you have these events that take place, right, we'll just call them situations, whether organic or not, you always got to look at how it's being branded and pushed on the social platform, mainstream media, and so on. So with this whole White House, shooting situation, what's coming after it? Key terms, right? Radicalization, social media, online, and they tie that into, when you read down here, things that he said about like Trump, right? Saying that he was basically a Nazi and that kind of stuff. So what you start to see is a web that's being weaved, tying in somebody who is online saying that they've been radicalized, right? And that through that radicalization, through that mindset of seeing and speaking evil against Trump, it led him to do something like this, which is dangerous. So the web starts to spread when now what's separating you, who don't like Trump, from him, who also didn't like Trump? How do they know you won't go and do something he did, at some point? That's how they start to spread that web, right? Well, if he was able to be radicalized online just as easily as he was, how do we know there's not like 20 or 30,000 others that are in his stead that are also going through the same thing? So now what are you going to do? Look for all 20 or 30 others, or try to go to what you deem the source? What's happening here? Why does this keep happening? This is an issue that needs to be dealt with. So the whole point in this is looking at like the so now what do we do question. Whenever these things come up, look at the answer they give you for the so now what do we do? And that will tell you what it is they've wanted from the start. Okay? They don't wait for situations to happen. They make situations happen so that they can push what they would like. All right, these are called tailor-made situations. A post here, right, which says, if you're wondering why 3 attempts on President Trump's life that we know of have happened, it's because of people like Tim Waltz, who keep saying no one has ever been more dangerous to this country than Donald Trump. And he is a fascist to his core. You see that? So it's the tying in of, well, you're speaking things that are evil about Trump, and because of that, it's leading people who listen to you to start to believe this. Now, you may not go all the way with it, but there are some who listen, and it goes so far into their head that they're like, well, somebody needs to take action, and then they go and do these kinds of things. And then they start to, push that sort of narrative out there. Not that this is the first time they're doing it, but just something to keep in mind, as these things happen. And they always seem to have some manifesto. Lastly here, this is just folly, right? I just found it interesting. I'm going to have to pause this. And what I'll do is I'll post a link for this in the description, and then you can take a look if you would like. But whatever it is, this doesn't even look like Babylon, right? It looks like maybe some other country, but see, there's like playing soccer, and then maybe the ball goes into the road and you got to like look around and quickly try to grab it and come back, right? There's like, playing whatever, hopscotch and those kinds of things. And then there's this, which is just blatant stupidity, right? It's not like you're doing this like at a time when the road is like blocked off. There's barely a road that barely any cars come on. This is a busy road, high traffic. And this is the dumb shit that you see going on, so that they can jump. Kids risk their lives crossing a busy road so they can jump. They can have a running jump into a pond. So I'll play a little bit, but I'm going to have to pause it.
I know Dios.
Look at that.
Question mark.
Common sense will tell you not to, and then I have to pause it because obviously, it doesn't end well for at least one of them. Okay? So, what did you expect? Literally, what did you expect? So that's what you have there. But this is just, I showed this here to show that this is one of the reasons as well. Because once again, this doesn't look like this is America. I don't think this is America. It's probably some other country. But this is one of the reasons why this world needs a reset. Because the generally right? Generally, common sense has become very, very, very scarce in the world, to the point where this is what, kids do, right? This is what they do, which, come on, you should know better than this. Whoever arranged that's like, but at the end of the day, you know what? The Lord set it up that way. That's the judgment that he set up for them. So that's how it had to play out, but hey, you got a different version of lack of common sense in Babylon, and you got different versions in different different areas, where all this is happening. So, when you look at the compilation of these different headlines, where in there do you get the sense of things being okay, the world shifting to a better place? And it's not even that the world is in a constant state. It's a downfall, right? It's been ticking towards a worse and worse and worse state over the past, couple of decades, more prevalent now in the past few years. And there's only so much you can go in the direction of just folly and wickedness before the Lord has to bring a reset, like he did during the days of Noah. So that's where we're at now, right? The Lord is bringing a reset to fix this world again, because if not, there's going to be nothing left to fix. Anyway, with that, I'm going to end it here. Lord willing, that was edifying and informative to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha Kodesh. Until next time, Shalom.